Adobe After Effects can be very intimidating, and that can overwhelm you if you are just opening the program for the first time. So I am here to make it easy for any beginner in just 16 minutes. First, let's take a look at the user interface. Right at the first top right here, you have the standard option like every other software. Right here by your left, you have the project manager window, and at the center here you see in the black box is your preview window, and below it is the timeline. And right here by your right you have other windows here, but let's take a look at some few. Here you have the character tab where you change your fonts and design your fonts. Here you have the effect and preset panel, and you have the align panel right here. So these are the basic interface that you need to know to get started. Alright, now let's create a new composition. So go to the composition option and select new composition. So we are going to name our composition to logo animation, and then set the frame size to 1920 by 1080. Then for the frame rate, you are going to select 29.97 frame per second. Then for the composition duration, let's set that to 10 seconds. Then hit OK. So next, let's create a new layer we are going to use as background. So go to layer option, then new, and select the solid layer. Here, just name it BG for background. Then click make comp size. Then you can set any color here because that does not matter, and then hit OK. So go to effect and preset, then type in ramp. So we are going to use the gradient ramp to change the color of our background. So for now, I'm just going to set the dark area to something purple, hit OK, and then the lower area I am going to set it to purple bluish or a bit lighter. So now next, let's make a quick logo we are going to animate. Right click on the timeline, go to new, and then add a text. I'm gonna make my text just a capital S. Select the pen tool right here, then hold down the Control or Option key on Mac, then double click on the anchor tool. That will center the anchor point. Then go to align window and align this to center. There you have it. So next, let's create an ellipse. Go here next to the pen tool and select the ellipse tool. Make sure you click outside to make sure no layer is selected on the timeline. Then hold down Ctrl and Shift, then create an ellipse like this. Select the pen tool again, hold down Ctrl or Command on Mac, then double click the anchor tool, then hit the select tool, then go back to the align window and also align them. As you can see here, the ellipse tool is on top of the text. Because of the layer structure in After Effects, if you are familiar with Photoshop and other Adobe products, you will know that they are layer-based softwares. So because it shows the layer that is right on top of the down one, and it hides the layer below. So all you need to do is to change the arrangement, bring up the S on top, and then it will be visible like this. So the next we are going to do now is to change the colors of the ellipse tool. So set your color, the inner color. I'm going to go with something very warm. Yes, something like this. Hit OK. And then for the inner color, for the stroke, I'm going to go with something close to white. A bit off will do. So, and hit OK. Now we have a simple logo that we can animate. Next, we are going to add a null object that we can use to control the X and the cycle all together as one logo. So go to layer, go to new, and then select null object. This will place a null layer on your timeline. Select the pen tool again, hold down Ctrl or Command on Mac, then double click the anchor tool on top, then align it to center. So what you are going to do next is to parent the S and the cycle to the null object. So go to your timeline layers here, then select the shape layer and then select the text layer. Pick whip it to the null. This will automatically parent it to the null object. You can see if we move the null object, everything else moves. So now let's quickly create an animation for our logo. Click on the eye icon here below by the left. That will hide the text. Select the shape layer, then hit P on your keyboard. That will bring up the position property. Then move forward in time about 1 second, then create a keyframe. You create a keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch to the left of the position property. That will create a keyframe. This is what we call keyframe in After Effects. Bring your time indicator back to 0 frame, then move the shape layer to the left. Hold down Shift on your keyboard and hit T to bring up the opacity while still keeping the position property open. Then right here, go to 1 second time and then set a keyframe again for the opacity. Then you come back to 0 and set the opacity to 0. That will hide the cycle. So if you play this, you see you have a simple animation like this. Select the text now again and unhide it by clicking again on the space for the eye icon. That will unhide the text. Now move your time indicator to 1 second again to bring up the position property of the text. Set a keyframe, go back to 0 frame and then move it to the right slightly. Then hold Shift down and hit T on your keyboard to bring up the opacity while still keeping the position property. Go back to 1 second time on the timeline and then set a keyframe. Then go back to 0 frame and then set the opacity to 0. So now if you play the animation like this, you will see the cycle and the text coming together in time. Now move your time indicator to about 3 second time on the timeline. Then you hit N on the keyboard. This will shrink your workspace. This way you'll be able to preview only what you have animated. So let's preview that and see. So this movement is not very organic. So what we can do now is to select all the keyframe right here. Right click on it, go to Keyframe Assistant, then select Easy Ease. This will make the animation have an organic feel. If you select all the frame and you want it to play a bit faster than this, you can just hold the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows, then click and drag to shrink your animation inward. That way it will play faster. So you can adjust this to your satisfaction. Right click again, go to New and add a new text. So I'm gonna name this SSB Otaro. Select the pick tool right here, open up the character window so that you can adjust the text right here. Right here you can change the text style, and here you can change the font size. Then open up the align tool again and align this to center. We are going to move this down a bit below the cycle, so hold down the Shift and then use the arrow key to move it down. So if you remember, we parented the cycle and the text to a null object. This is where it becomes handy. Select the null object, hit P on your keyboard and then shift it a bit up. You can see this has moved everything in uniform. However, we are not going to do that right now. So Ctrl Z to undo. Now we are going to set a keyframe for that movement to create a space for SSB Otaro to stay in the frame. What we are going to do now is to move our time indicator to about 1.5 seconds. Set a position keyframe for the null object. Then shift the keyframe backward and then set a new keyframe by adjusting this to your liking. Somewhere like that. Yes. So select the keyframes again right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant, and then select Easy Ease. Now the new text SSB Otaru, we are going to select that, hit P on your keyboard again so that we can position that correctly. First of all, position it correctly like this. Yes, right there, it's okay. Then while still here, set a keyframe for the position, then hold down Shift and then hit the T key, then to set another keyframe for the opacity. Then move backward in time to where the logo and the cycle start moving up. This way will bring the text downward, bring it almost out of the frame preview, then set the opacity to 0 at this point. So now select the keyframes again, right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant, and then Easy Ease. So if we play this now, this is what we're gonna have. We are gonna select all the layers on our timeline right here below. Select the first one and then select the last one right here, holding down the Shift on your keyboard. That will select all other layers above it. Do not select the BG layer. Hit U on your keyboard to hide all the properties. Then let's pre-compose this. This way we are going to be able to use it in another composition with a transparent background without having to make or copy or start the animation all over again. So let me show you how that works. Then right click on the layers and select pre-compose. Then make sure you select move all attribute to the new composition and then name your composition to logo. If you check right here, you can see the logo composition have been added to the project manager window. So what we are going to do now is to use this same composition on another composition without having to do the animation all over again. So we are going to import our file. You double click on the project manager window, then navigate to find your file that you want to use for the new composition. So when you find your file, click on it and then hit the import button. Select the footage you just imported and drag it to this icon right here to create a new composition. This had created a new composition using the video file you just brought in. So select your logo composition right here on the project window, drag and drop it on top right here. So you can see now, without necessarily starting the animation all over again, if you play this back, you see that you have your logo animation on the new composition. Adding sound to your animation can give it some level of life and excitement. So to add sound to your animation, double click again on the project manager window, navigate to where you have your sound, select your sound and then hit import. This will bring in the sound right here into the project manager window. Select the sound, right click on it and drag to the timeline. So if you play this back now, it will have the sound you just added. You can see the sound has given our animation more life and excitement. So now after you have finished your animation, let's export the animation. Go to composition, then add to render queue. So right here you will see that your timeline has switched to the where you set your render options. So on the best setting, select it and set this to best, then hit OK. On the output model, on the format option, select QuickTime. With this option you might need to have to install QuickTime into your PC to be able to have this option right here. Then on the render option, select it and set this to Apple ProRes 422, then you hit OK. On the video output, select it to RGB, or less otherwise if you want to export an alpha channel, which means with transparent background. For now, leave it at RGB and then hit OK. For the audio option, just leave it at default 16-bit and then stereo. That will do the magic. Then hit OK. On the output too, select it, name your file, and select a directory or output folder for it. So I'm going to just name this first logo animation. Make sure you are sending it to a place where you are going to recognize on your PC. Then hit OK. Then see the renders button right here, hit it, and it will start rendering. This will depend on the speed of your computer, the size of your animation, and all other factors included. So open up your Adobe Media Anchor. This is a software that ships with After Effects. So navigate to the folder where you have exported your previous animation. So select and drag it and drop it into the Media Anchor. This will automatically import it. See the option right here, select H.264. So here you hit render to convert this. Make sure you also set a destination for that. I'm gonna export this to desktop so that I can easily find it and play it back. Then hit the play button at the top right corner. This will render your file out to H.264, which is the standard MP4 file. There you have it. I hope with this tutorial I'm able to make Adobe After Effects less intimidating for you and easy for you to navigate and get started. Feel free, explore other options from the tools available in Adobe After Effects, because your creativity is only limited by your imagination. I hope this has been helpful. My name is SSB Otaru for Motion Digit Studios.